You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, here, Disney.
Every morning, the light keeps getting brighter as I wake up to the truth. And every day, I'm feeling so much lighter, and the world seems fresh and new. What I was taught and the way that I thought stopped serving me long ago. Now I'm learning to trust in the God of all of us. Each day I start anew, and so I'm walking away from the thinking that held me for so long.
Boy, don't you like the words of that song? That song goes right along with what the Watchtower is, walking away from their thinking. Well, we have got two people on here tonight. They want to get their thinking in the right direction. Angela and Dan Clark, they're coming in tonight live. We're glad to have them. Hello, Angela and Dan.
Hi there, Rick.
Hey there, Rick. Glad to be on, man. We're glad to be helping people walk away. And they're walking away by the floods. Don't let Watchtower kid you with these phony numbers, phony memorial numbers. There's nobody going back to the meeting. I mean, people are exiting out of there. They were abandoned. They were thrown away. When this thing happened with COVID, they were dumped. And they're selling their halls. A year ago, you saw my video, Rick. You posted it last week. When they told them they could go back to the meeting, they took another year off and made those people suffer. Well, I don't know that they were suffering, but to think, Rick, I mean, nobody's running back to Kingdom Hall. People have had time to think, realize, reflect on things, and know we were just good for nothing slaves. Is what we were.
And you know that song ends with that today is the day I walk away. That's how that chorus ends right there. It's so good. Anyway.
Well, it's a great song, Angela. A great song. So we're glad to have you back. We haven't heard from you guys. We missed you. We had people wondering, where's Angela and Dan? Well, you're back on with us tonight. So that's great. So I'll be here if you need me. I'm going to step out of the scene here, give you guys a full screen. So you go ahead and do your thing.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Yes, we can. Loud and clear. You're coming in good.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you doing tonight? Yeah, thank you for coming in. A lot of people on the line tonight, a whole lot of people, and they're really interested in hearing your story. These stories that we share really help a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are listening, and they might wonder, did I do the right thing when I left? And they second guess themselves. They go through all the cycles of anger, because we know when you leave something, a mate or an organization or a religion, it's just like a death. They said it's equivalent to death. So we know that you've cycled through a lot of those feelings and emotions. And so we just want to thank you for coming to the show and sharing your testimony, and may it help a lot of people. I put out a Facebook Live just telling people to tune in, listen with your heart. I know you come from your heart. Me and Angela talk to you, and you got a beautiful testimony. And we know you're in the middle of transformation right now and recovery. But thank you for coming on. You've been out just a little while now, right?
Yes, it will be a year this coming August, but time is flying pretty fast for me. And yeah, I'm super excited where this new journey is going to take me, because literally my worldview, my everything was torn apart. So I'm starting over from scratch, and I'm sure many in the audience can attest to that.
Yep. Yeah. That's what they call building on the rock mass and not the BS of Watchtower. So tell us, Laura, kind of where it began, I guess. How did you get into the witnesses? Was this a family thing, or how did you come about coming in? And then, kind of what was it like? I guess just kind of go along the journey, and we'll kind of chime in along the way.
Okay. Well, it all started with my mom's mom, my grandmother on my mother's side, who was studying to become a nun, when she came in contact with one of her sisters who was studying to become a Jehovah's Witness. And she ended up bringing all her children, including their grandchildren, into the religion. Well, what I call now to be the cult, because it is a cult. But that's how it all started. And the funny thing about that backstory is that her joining the Jehovah's Witnesses caused a rift between her and my grandfather. And he ended up, because in Togo, West Africa, polygamy is still very much practiced. So he, instead of, divorcing her, which, it wouldn't make sense. They already had kids, really. He just started marrying other women. And to this day, I still but he ignores them because they chose to go into the Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's the backstory. And my mom herself, she got baptized at 16. She left into the quote unquote world where she met my father. They got married. They immigrated to the United States from Togo, and they started a wonderful hair care business. They owned a hair salon, to the point where the business was so successful that they bought a house. And things were going really nice for them. They were living the American dream, a dream that many Togolese people living in Togo will never get to experience. They were living the dream, and then next thing you know, my mom started going back to meetings. And what ended up happening was that when I was born, my parents sent me back to Africa. And then 2 years later, my brother was born, and then they sent him to Africa as well. So we came back to the United States when I was 5 and he was 3. While I was in Togo, my grandmother was indoctrinating. My grandmother and my aunt, they were all indoctrinating us into the Jehovah's Witnesses as much as they possibly can. But unfortunately, that is where my sexual abuse happened. I got sexually abused when I was, yes.
I just was curious, did your parents send you guys to Africa, without them?
Yes.
Oh, how strange. So you just had to go use your grandparents then, and then they stayed in the United States, in New York.
It's actually a common practice among African immigrants. They, if they have children here in, developed countries, if they find themselves unable to take care of the children because of their heavy work-life schedule, they will often send the children back home to their home countries, where the extended family will raise the children for them. So a lot of families I know actually practice this. They actually do send their children back to Africa. It's not uncommon at all.
So how old were you? Do you think you were when your mother and dad, or your mom and dad, sent you back to Africa? How old do you think you were?
I was 8 months old when she placed me in the arms of her good friend. And, we went on the plane. And when we arrived in Togo, they placed me in my grandmother's hands. So I was 8 months old.
Wow. Don't you kind of wonder, that whole thing about moms and daughters and the bonding, and then learning your facial expressions and learning how you mouth words and your personality. And you pick up all of that when you're so young, and to have that just to be ripped away from your mom. And I don't know. I just wonder how much that affects, your relationship, and how that affected your relationship down the road, when you came back. Just curious. It's so interesting.
Well, it did affect us in many ways. I'm going to get to that a little later, because the effects were seen much, much later in my story. It wasn't seen right away when they sent me back to Africa, but it was while I was in Africa that I got sexually abused. The first instance was by a young boy who was not much older than me, and he must have been abused as well. And so he's probably, the same thing that was done to him was what he did to me. And then the other instance was a man much older than me. He was a friend of my uncle's. And now keep in mind, my uncles, my mom's side of the family, they are all witnesses. This is with the exception of the outside children that my grandfather had with his many wives. But they are the main family, they are witnesses, and they would bring their friends home, whenever my grandmother and my aunt weren't home. And that man started abusing me. And it's sickening, because I actually still remember what he used to smell like, and I'm 26 now. The abuse happened when I I still remember what he smelled like. That's the crazy thing. It happened between the ages of 4 and 5. The only thing that saved me was that my parents called for my brother and I to re-enter the United States. So my grandmother came back with us here. And that's when all the troubles really started, when it came to the tug of war between my parents and the religion.
Did you say those were witnesses that a bit sexually abused you?
My memory doesn't, for some weird reason, I can't remember who it was that abused me. I just know that it was a friend of my uncle's, but my uncles were witnesses.
Gotcha. Only reason I'm saying is this is really becoming the norm in there, where these stories are coming out every week, and it's I'm going to say the word, it's the real pandemic, not COVID. This is the real pandemic in there. Authoritarianism, Anyway, keep going.
And real quick too, I wanted to ask you about your grandfather. Was he a witness ever got? Your grandfather?
No, my grandfather, he was very against my grandmother joining the JW. That's why their marriage was a rift in their marriage. So the reason why my sexual abuse is significant, and I'm mentioning it, is because this is something that's traumatized me my entire life, and my mom never got me help for it, just as a side note. And then years later, the abuse happened when I was under the care of my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt. My aunt was like a second mother to me. They didn't protect me well enough. And now I have to deal with this for the rest of my life. And the sad thing is, years later, my baby cousin, who is now, I think she's 10, that aunt, later on, she had a daughter, and that daughter of hers, under her care, got sexually abused as well. Which means that my grandmother and my aunt are not doing what they're supposed to do when it comes to protecting their young.
No, they're not.
There's no restrictions in there. A man who's an elder, I mean, there's no, what do you call it? There's no education around these sort of things. Like I always say, in a regular church, there's background checks. There's, all sorts of things put in place. Don't go with a little girl to the bathroom or a boy alone. Don't do this alone. But in the Jehovah's Witnesses, none of that is there. There's no background checks. There's no curriculum that they have to go through a class and do all this stuff. So it's danger. It's an accident waiting to happen. And I got one other question I wanted to ask you. Why don't you think your mother got you help? Was that because you were going to a worldly counselor? Why didn't you get you help when you told her you've been abused? Was it just Jehovah's organization is enough, or what?
Well, there is that, but my mom is not. See, that's the thing. Jehovah's Witnesses, they tend to seek out people that lack education for a good reason, because it makes them both vulnerable and it makes them easy targets. Now, my mom, I don't think she even graduated high school. And I'm not trying to put her on blast, but the truth has to be told. My story has to get out to help others. So I don't think she even graduated from high school before they left Togo to come to the United States. And the kind of industry that she worked in, she didn't really need an education. She braided hair for a living. So, I honestly think that's the reason why, the lack of education. because to them it's just like, oh yeah, she was abused, but you know, she'll get over it. Like they don't really think to realize, wait a minute, this is a traumatizing event. This is not normal. This kid needs help. There are simple everyday things that children do that show to the adults in their lives that they have been abused. For example, when I came back to the United States, I was wetting the bed all the time. I was remembering, like reliving my abuse, sometimes every time I went to sleep. My parents weren't aware of this, but every time I would wet the bed, they would beat me mercilessly. As opposed to taking me to the doctor and seeing, why is our kid constantly wetting the bed? There's a reason why. It's because she was abused.
There's always a reason why.
Oh my God.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you what. You know, it's interesting is my mom, you know, she, every once in a while something will come up about, you know, how things were back when she was young, you know. And it just seems to me like, I don't know, the era, at least when my mom, she's now just about ready to turn 80. So let's see, that puts her in the 1940s when she was born, I guess. 40. Yeah, that's about right. And so it seemed like back then, they didn't have the respect for women, and that this kind of thing, incestual type things, just went on, and no one said anything. They would just tolerate it. And I'm just in awe of it, because I'm starting to realize in my older age that this is just rampant. And so just for whatever that's worth, I feel like maybe today in our day and age, you know, I'll see a little bit more on the younger side of that 40s age, we are not okay with that. And I'm really glad at least that we were saying that, no, that's not normal. This is not okay. People should have said something. That person should have been told on, but they just tolerated it. And I don't know. I'm so glad
Close your eyes and forget about it. Don't talk about it.
Especially in these abusive religions, you know. I was grown up in the Worldwide Church of God, and it was the same kind of thing in there, you know. You saw stuff, but you don't say anything, you know. And matter of fact, you really better not. And so it's the same. I see it's the same thing in the witnesses. You know, you just it is what it is. You know, men dominate the women for the most part in there, and it's the way that it is. Put up and shut up. You know.
Yes. Yes, precisely. Just put up and shut up. And unfortunately, my young cousin, she was around the same age that I was when she got abused. She was around 5 as well. And this time it was by, you know, I know this to be a fact. It was by a brother in their congregation. Her parents would always leave him around to play with the little babies, and then he ended up abusing her, unfortunately. And I believe he's still in the congregation today in good standing because they didn't want to do anything about it. Their own daughter.
Boy, oh boy. You know, I just think sometimes I feel like sometimes the moms just turn a blind eye because I don't know why, that they don't know what to do, or I don't know, they're embarrassed or humiliated. I don't know what to think of it. But I do wonder, don't you? Like, why do mothers turn a blind eye, like as if their souls don't let them see the truth? Like they just don't see it. They will not see it, you know? Just throwing it out.
I honestly feel like it's a guilt thing because sometimes people tend to ignore the thing that bothers them the most.
That's true.
Like they'll turn a blind eye to it. I think it's a guilt thing. Like, for example, I mean, I'm going to mention this later on in the story, but my mom has done a lot of, you know, a lot of wrongs against me. But to this day, she still acts like nothing happened. Almost like history has been rewritten and none of the bad things ever happened. It's a guilt thing. Because deep down on the inside, if they were to let themselves feel those emotions, they would need some serious therapy to get through it. So they would rather pretend that it didn't happen, that it didn't exist, so that they can live and function daily.
Yeah. Almost like a trauma for them in a way.
That's a great point you made there, because I think that's why they cut our asses off, is because they don't have to deal with us. You know, if they had to deal with us and actually talk to us and hear our hearts and say, oh, I fell in love with a boy or the girl, and actually deal with some shit, as opposed to just cutting us off like we've never existed, you know, like Morrissey, you know, blowing out a match and saying he'll be glad when we're all dead. I mean, you know, it's what you said about uneducation from the top down. You'd have to be uneducated to be in there. I was dumb. I didn't have any education, and I didn't have any theological education, any Bible. So when they gave me their few little ideologies with God's name, Jehovah, He's not a Trinity, I was like, okay, yeah, we got the truth. that's how narrow-minded and, that I was. I didn't know any better. So we're innocent by virtue of the fact that we didn't have a broad enough perspective. Anyway, go ahead with your story.
Yeah, so as stated before, that brother is still in the congregation today, and my aunt didn't do anything about it. My uncle, he's still an elder in that congregation. He didn't do anything about it, and it sickens me when I think of it. But okay, so after my grandmother came back to the United States with my brother and I, at that time I was 5 and he was 3 because he's 2 years younger than me. Basically, she started pushing my mom even more to re-indoctrinate herself harder and harder and harder into the religion. And my mom started going back to meetings every Saturday she'll go in service all day. Every Sunday she'll go to meetings. Every convention, we began not missing anything. And it affected my parents' business and marriage in the most detrimental of ways. My mom will tell a different story to the world, but I'm here to set the record straight and say that in the very beginning, my father supported her going back to the Jehovah's Witnesses because he thought it was harmless. But as she got more and more indoctrinated, they began losing business. Many of the brothers and sisters would show up at her, many of the brothers with their wives will show up at her salon expecting discounts, expecting lower prices than the regular clientele, and this made them lose a lot of business. And they had 3 mouths to feed because by then my mom had already given birth to my little sister.
Wow.
It was the worst. It was the worst thing. It caused such a rift in my parents' marriage. And what ended up happening was my mom turned the 3 of us kids against our father. And I'm saying this now for the world to hear because as a child, my father, I thought he was a demon who opposed Jehovah. I thought he was a devil. I thought the very worst things of him because of what my mom told us, that we shouldn't get near our father, that he didn't like us, we should stay very far away from him. She vilified him, not only in front of the 3 of us children, but to the entire Togolese community in South Jamaica, Queens. She messed up his reputation. To this day, many people, when I tell people who my parents are in the local Togolese community, people know exactly who I am, and they're like, your father's a horrible person. And not only did she do that among the Togolese community, among the African community, but she did it in the congregation as well. The only thing that was wrong with her marriage, in their eyes, was his opposition to the religion, which only started happening when it started affecting their finances because they had 3 mouths to feed. They had bills to pay. And she didn't understand that. Instead, she let her mother, my grandmother, turn her against her own husband. And they both destroyed his reputation and made his life impossible in the house.
I'm glad you said that, Laura. There's a lot of brothers and sisters out there right now that, came to that, crisis of conscience you're talking about and said, I can't do this anymore. But when they leave, the hatred from governing body, the hatred in the congregation, he went back to Satan. He's a devil. This is real. This is not only in Africa. This is everywhere. I had a brother call me the other day, and he was going through a thing where he was exiting. He couldn't take it anymore. And the brothers and sisters got alongside of his children and said, your dad's going to have his eyes picked out. Can you believe that? No grace. No, he's going to come back to Jehovah. No, we pray that he turns around. No, his eyes are going to be picked out of his head.
By what?
By birds. By birds.
Wow.
And then all sorts of stuff. This is what you're saying is so true.
Yeah, and he's hurting right now because it looks like his family is being pulled back to the witnesses, and he's going to be dead alone without them here, like if it hasn't already happened in the last day or two. He's just heartbroken. Same situation all over again.
Yeah. So, that part of my story I'm very regretful of because I would repeat the same thing that my mom would tell me about my father. And, I was the golden child in the family. My mom, I was the oldest of my mom and my dad. not the oldest of my dad because he had a child previously before meeting my mom. But yeah, I'm the oldest of my mom and my dad. And yeah, basically, I was the golden child. I was the child who would do everything that she wanted, even though, even that young, she already demonstrated certain traits that I am going to touch on again later that revealed to me. Now I realize that my mom has been a narcissist my entire life, but I didn't realize it as a kid. I thought that her behavior was normal, always comparing me to other children in the Kingdom Hall, comparing my brother and my sister, like comparing the three of us against each other, talking about our appearance in such a terrible way. Like, I recall my mom doing all sorts of messed up things to me. My mom was a strict believer in the "it takes a village to raise a child" mentality that a lot of African people tend to adopt, which was very bad because she would let other adults do anything to us and she wouldn't speak up on it because she felt that the adults had the right of way and that as children we didn't have the right to speak up on anything. So I got baptized when I was 11. I became an unbaptized publisher at 8, and I got baptized at 11. And unfortunately, a lot of the children in my halls were all double lifers, and I became this stuck-up, self-righteous little girl who would tell on them every time I saw them doing something wrong. And of course, it didn't make me very popular among my peers. It was quite a childhood because of that. I didn't fit in at school. I didn't fit in the Kingdom Hall. The adults hated me. It was weird. But getting baptized got me the love and the acceptance that I was craving from the adults in the Kingdom Hall. So getting baptized got the pioneers, the elders, the Bethelites. It got their attention because not only was I already my mom's golden child, so to speak, but I became the golden child of the congregation. All of a sudden, I was getting demonstrations. I was I was literally every interview opportunity they would use me as an example. I remember when Learn from the Great Teacher, the book came out, and I was around 8 when Learn from the Great Teacher came out, and I brought like 20 or 30 copies to school, and I handed it out to the kids in my class. And their parents weren't having it because they read through the book and they saw the portion about sex, and they didn't want their kids reading that kind of stuff. So some of them returned the books. But I really thought I was doing right. Like, I really thought I was doing the right thing. It was crazy. But yeah, that was my childhood.
What was it saying in that book? A book about sex that they didn't
Learn
like?
from the Great Teacher. I think there was one chapter that was talking about sex organs and stuff like that, and how the angels came down to earth and slept with human women, and like that chapter was very graphic for a children's book. And you know, a lot of the kids in my class came back returned the book to me because they're like their parents don't want them reading it.
Yeah.
So it was.
I'll tell you, I'm not liking this baptizing these children. That's really starting to bother me. You know, to hear Tony Morris, you know, say, you know, what do you mean you get a driver's license, you're not baptized? When did manipulation come in, Laura? Do you remember when we were in? It was like they wanted to make sure you were old enough to make a decision. I mean, even 11 years old, I'm blown away. It used to be, you know, 25 years old. You know, make sure you're mature enough to know you're making a dedication to Jehovah God. And now they've got these 7-year-olds, 8, 9, standing in front of a television set. I mean, I saw it on a YouTube video the other day. I'm telling you, it looked like a ritual. This boy standing in front of a TV screen saying, governing bodies, the mediator, governing bodies who Jehovah put there, they're the faithful slaves. It was a ritual. And it made me sick to watch it. And just like you said, there was Daddy there, right on the floor, right next to him. So proud of him. So happy that he's making this dedication to Jehovah. And but he was so young. That's what bothered me. You know, like it's manipulation. It's get them when they're young. You know, so they're programmed the rest of their life.
Well, didn't they say in the Australian Royal Commission that they did not take the information from God and hand it down? They're not the mediator. Didn't they say literally that we are not the mediator? So, yet they're still baptizing and saying that you have to say that we're the mediator, even though they said in the court of law that they don't do that before the judge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
they're just lying and making it up as they go. Go ahead, Laura. I just had to say that. It's really starting to eat at me.
They love the organization, the governing body. They love playing mind games, and that's, they don't even realize how badly it affects the members. But yeah, my childhood happened, and the funny thing is, as I stated, a lot of the traits of narcissism I saw with my mom way before, but I believe a lot of people in the audience will probably relate to this. My mom was the type of person who she'll read every single article of every watchtower, every awake. She'll wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to read her Bible. Sometimes she'll be in service. She will be the main person to, whenever we had conventions, she'll cook for the entire congregation and she'll tell people not to buy lunch. She'll cook for the entire congregation and she'll be like, "Oh no, come eat at me, come eat at my table, Don't buy lunch." And so she got a lot of love and support from people that way. She would basically bribe people into loving her and liking her. She needed that acceptance so badly. But at home, the way in which she treated us, the way in which she treated our father, it was an absolute mess. And to this day, I'm still grappling with the fact that my mom has double identities. She has the identity that she only shows to her children, and then the identity that she shows to the congregation. And it's kind of sickening because after my father left at 14, she kept up a certain aura and appearance before my dad left because she was in competition with him. She wanted to come off like the better parent so that we would approach her more. My dad was the stricter one because he didn't want his kids getting into the cult. But because she was the nicer parent, we would always go towards her. We would always warm up to her. But after my father left at 14, her mask fell off. And that's when we came face to face with who our mother really was. And what was behind that mask was not a very pretty person. Personality-wise, that was not a good person. She needed the world to think that she was this amazing person. And that's why I'm saying narcissism, because there are a lot of, I believe it's covert narcissists that will often have one face for the world and then one face for home. Where the person who's getting abused will be like, this person is doing this to me, this person is doing that to me, and nobody will ever believe them because they hide it so well. It's sickening.
Yes, and that's a great point. And see, we got to start labeling these things. See, in the organization, we're just told to smile, put on your name badge, smile, go to the assembly. But like you said, underneath, it's still the same person. It's still, like you said, most of them were living double lives. They weren't changed. We just turned into watchtower salesmen. We're selling watchtowers. Go ahead.
Yes, exactly. Watchtower salesmen, and that's all they cared about. And my father ended up leaving for Africa when I was 14. And because he didn't have the proper paperwork, he got stuck in Togo. And he's actually still there now. So it's been a little bit over a decade. But my mom used that opportunity to divorce him very quickly. And she used that opportunity and even though she did have grounds to divorce him because he wasn't happy in that marriage, she used that opportunity to divorce him because she didn't want anything to do with him. She honestly thought that she was going to find a brother to replace him very quickly. It didn't happen. And here we are now. But after my father left at 14, I started high school. And at that time, I was raised in the French congregation, and they had a lot of Haitian brothers and sisters within the French. So the French and the Creole split. The organization created a Creole circuit, and most of the Haitian brothers and sisters moved to the Creole circuit, the Haitian Creole circuit. And that was when I started noticing that there was a clique in our congregation. And that clique was comprised of pioneer sisters. The head of the clique was a Bethelite sister. And this is something that hit me much later on. That Bethelite sister was the reason why all those other younger sisters were so materialistic. Her influence on them was strong. And it was kind of weird for me to see a Bethelite sister like influence these younger pioneer sisters into being as materialistic as possible. They all drove the same car. They all loved name brand. Not to say that there's anything wrong with loving name brand bags or clothes, but it was really weird to see, especially coming from the perspective of a young person who's really trying to do right by God, do right by Jehovah, so to speak. I was really depressed because I'm like, these people are so materialistic and they don't really care about God. When they're in service, you can tell that they didn't like being in service. They'll do the bare minimum. They will count hours, empty hours in the car without really stepping out and doing doors. They will drag Bible studies on for hours and hours and hours just to count their time. You could tell that they didn't really have it in their heart for the ministry. They didn't really care about the ministry. All they cared about was getting their hours in, making money and taking fancy vacations. And meanwhile, when they're on those vacations, they wouldn't even act like witnesses. They will dress scantily. Not to say that, I'm not a judgmental person now, but back then, watching them dress a certain way that they weren't supposed to, watching them use profanity in a way that they were not supposed to, watching them listen to certain music, literally live double lives as pioneers. It made me so depressed at the tender age of 16. And I was smack in the middle of high school. And what ended up happening was that there was this Bethelite sister who planned a trip with my mom, my siblings, and some people from the Bronx French congregation. And we ended up going to the log cabin in the woods. We visited all the Bethels. And that was within that scenario that I ended up meeting my future husband. So I actually met my future husband at 16.
Wow.
I met him at 16, and what drew his attention to me was a weird little situation that happened. So just as a backstory, my brother would always be the one to get in trouble as children. So he was literally the scapegoat. Every time something bad happened, it would more than likely be blamed on him. So there was a situation where we were outside the log cabin. We were bored. And we were like, let's go back into the log cabin. Let's take out these board games to play. It was him and me and my younger sister, our younger sister. So we took out the board games, we started playing, and the Bethelite sister who invited us on the trip. Now, mind you, this is somebody who is very controlling, not Christian-like at all. The way, I still don't understand to this day how she's the wife of a Bethelite. I still don't get how that happened. But, now that I know the hypocrisy behind the organization, I understand that, it's all about, prominence and position, So anyway, she came and she was like, who told you guys to play with these board games? And we were just shaken. We were like, no, we just wanted to play. We just wanted to have fun. And she turned towards my brother and she started yelling at him and berating him. And then this other sister came in and she joined in on yelling and berating my brother because she wanted to fit in. And she ended up slapping my brother 3 times across the face hard in front of the entire group.
Oh, boy.
And because I was so calm and collected, and I guess I must have seemed, super humble and submissive, I drew the attention of that man who would soon become my husband because I seemed so calm and collected within that situation. It was really weird.
Oh.
Weird.
And so, yeah, at that time, I was still underage. He was already in his early to mid-20s. He was probably maybe 24, 25. I was 16. He should not have been checking me out.
No.
There was something wrong with that.
Yeah.
There was something very wrong with that.
And he saw your submissiveness,
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I wasn't attracted to him. I mean, to this day, I'm still not attracted to him. I'm just being real here. When you're young in the organization, you don't have a lot of options. You kind of have to, you have to settle. You have to settle. So I wasn't attracted to him, and the funny thing, by the next year, by the time I turned 17, we already started talking. I didn't know why I was talking to him, but I was like, well, he's the only brother who paid me attention. I'm probably not going to get anyone better. So we started talking. And he was weird. Our courtship was super weird. He wouldn't even, something so much as putting his arm around my shoulder was too much for him. And he wasn't affectionate. He was very dry. He didn't have any life to him. I didn't even realize that he was a narcissist until deeper on in our marriage because he hid it very well. And he had this reputation in the congregation where he would always help out the brothers and sisters. The same person. Him and my mom are like the same person in two different bodies.
Oh yeah, just caught that.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
The same exact person in two different bodies. And yeah, so we got engaged when I was December of the year that I turned 20, you know, with that dry courtship where I genuinely did not love him. I genuinely did not care for him, but I'm like, I'm never going to get anyone better. And not only that, my mom made life very hard for me in the house. So it was very easy to just latch on to whatever came along to leave, you know, her abusive control. She would often have me, she would always throw these lavish dinner parties on Sundays after the meeting. And I would be the only person staying up late in the kitchen washing the dishes until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And she loved that. I was basically her little slave.
Wow.
Between the time when I started my courtship, when I started talking to that brother and the time that I got married, I had started college and I got into a dental hygiene program. And I didn't make it because she would not let me study. She would not, me studying was like a huge annoyance to her. When I would get home from school, she'll give me endless tasks to do. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And it would literally rain hell on earth if you don't do exactly what she says when she wants it done. Not on your time, on her time. So life was pretty much impossible for us in the house. She only wanted things done on her time. She didn't understand that she had growing children who had lives, who had school, who had homework assignments, who had projects. She didn't care about that. All she cared about was, you know, having little slaves sent to the house with her. And if we didn't do as she said, she would always tell us, oh, I wish I could abandon you guys like the way your father did. Oh, I don't know why he left you 3 children. I don't know why he left you 3 children. She always viewed us as like disgusting because we were the seed of our father. Basically, we were an extension of him. But what I don't understand about that is, why would you get with someone that you detest and then blame us for coming from it? Like, you married the dude. You had children with him. Why have children if you can't stand the person and now we have to suffer because you don't like our father? And mind you, you don't like our father for unreasonable reasons. They're not even reasons that make sense. You tore apart your own marriage with your own hands, and now you're over here blaming it on us kids. It was really sad. But anyways, I digress. And yeah, that's what happened. I saw that marriage opportunity as a way to get out of my situation. In the beginning, he portrayed himself as this humble, collected brother who could hardly hurt a flea. And then the mask fell off after we got married. We got married, our honeymoon happened. And actually, just as a side note, before we got married, the sisters in his congregation got together and they helped us to plan the wedding. It was a community center kind of wedding. We got together, they decorated, they cooked, you know, the congregations cooked. It was a community center kind of wedding. And the sister who was the head of the organization committee for our wedding, she could not stand me. And to this day, I still don't understand what I did to that sister. But I remember taking her aside and saying, thank you so much for helping us with, you know, the wedding decorations and everything. And she told me, oh, I just want to let you know, we're not doing any of this for you. We're doing this for the man that you're marrying, and we want you to treat him well. We're not doing any of this for you. And that's what she told me. And I had already known that she didn't like me for some weird reason. I don't know what I ever did to her. You know, maybe I was just, I don't know, young. I don't even know. And the thing is, this particular sister,
I'd almost bet she wanted your husband and he chose you. You know?
No, this particular sister, she could have been my mother. She was married to the Kobe in that congregation, the Kobe in his congregation. She had a wonderful life going for her. She barely worked. Her husband paid all the bills. They actually owned a house. They were doing quite well for witnesses. They lived a nice life, and they had a son. Like, they had a really nice life, and she was a regular pioneer. She had nothing to hate on me for, but yes, she could not stand me, and that's what she told me. And literally, as I was walking down the aisle on my wedding day, I was hearing her words echo in my ears. Like, you know, we're not doing this for you. We want you to treat him well. We want you to treat him well. We're not doing this for you. I was hearing that my entire wedding day.
That's crazy, insane. I don't understand it.
You know, I want to say one thing right here. I'm going to tell you what the problem is with all this crap. You know why we get married in the organization? Do you know why people get married? Necessity. They tell men, if you can't control yourself, right, after the blue youth, you know what I mean? You're still feeling sexually oriented. It's just marry. It doesn't say fall in love. And I'll tell you why you don't fall in love. Because you can't connect with your heart. And see, the witnesses, I'm telling you, they disconnect you from your heart. They say the heart is treacherous and desperate. Where do you meet a woman and feel the love? In your mind? No, you feel it in your heart. You feel this warmness. You feel this love. You feel this, but you're told not to go there. The heart's treacherous and desperate. Who can know it? So you can't connect. So the only way you connect with people is, oh, he goes door to door. Oh, he's got a good job. Or she. It works both ways. But it's not real, authentic love. Do you agree with that, Laura?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I saw a lot of couples in there that were ill-matched with each other. And, you know, it would always astonish me that it'll be the most plain brothers with nothing to offer in the real world that will end up with the most stunning, most talented sisters. I didn't understand it for the life of me. But yeah, that's ultimately what happened. I was hearing her words echo, you know, down the aisle at my wedding. Many people in that congregation were like, why were you crying so much walking down the aisle? And they didn't even realize it was because of what that sister said. I'm like, I don't know what's waiting for me on the other side. I'm leaving my family behind. I'm going into a whole new congregation. I'm starting a whole new job. Everything is new to me. And here I am, and this sister who's planning the wedding hates me. And she's the wife of the Kobe. How is my life going to be like in this congregation? You know, I was thinking all of those things. And, you know, we got married. Our honeymoon happened. And he was nice to me on the honeymoon, which was about a week. When we came back from the honeymoon, he switched up on me. And I was like, wait a minute. Why are you acting like this? You were so nice like a week ago. And he was like, oh, yeah, that was the honeymoon. This is the real life now.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he was like, this is the real life now. And this man, like, oh, my goodness. Where do I even begin? I started getting bullied a few months into our marriage, and he defended the sisters that were bullying me. He didn't believe that I was going through it. Like, I started getting bullied by the sisters that I would, like, our schedule was weird. He would work at night. I would work during the day. He would work at night so that he could pioneer during the day. So I was stuck with the same group of sisters in the evening, and they started bullying me. Especially, there was this young one, especially who, you know, when you're young like that and you're married into a fresh congregation, a lot of the sisters there are going to feel like threatened by you because they're like, oh, you're new blood. And they feel some type of way because, you know, he didn't choose one of them. He chose somebody else from a different congregation, that person being me. So I started getting bullied by them. And I came home to him crying on a couple of times, and he didn't stand up for me, not once. He stood up for them. Wow. He defended them.
Wow.
And he kept presenting reasons as to why they were doing what they were doing to me instead of standing up for me. Instead of standing up for me for what I was going through. He didn't believe that I was going through anything. Any complaint that I ever had for the duration of our marriage, even if I was in physical pain from, the monthly menstruation that women have, even if I was in physical pain from that, he would not believe me. Like there was something wrong with him mentally. Because whenever I was in pain, whether it was emotional, whether it was physical, it was nothing. He didn't care. It was weird. It was really, really weird. And
it's really, really weird.
And yeah, there were so many things that happened in our marriage that just should not have happened. Every single time there was a problem with the sister, because a lot of the sisters in this congregation, the congregation comprised of mostly pioneers. But these sisters are very self-centered. They usually have their way with the brothers, because the brothers think, oh, these are pioneers. They have an angel complex about these sisters.
Right.
When it's often the pioneers that are the worst individuals. It'll be the one person hiding in the corner at the back of the meeting, sitting in the back during the meeting. That's probably the nicest person in that kingdom hall. Usually the pioneers are not decent individuals. And that's something that I picked up on. I don't know what it is about people having position in the organization that turns them into horrible human beings. I don't get it. But yeah,
a lot of ego. A lot of ego around it. I knew a lot of them. I wouldn't talk to them because they were they were narcissists. I mean, they thought they were privileged and they were special, and they got to give all the comments, and they passed out more literature, and they were praised. It personally wasn't their fault, because the elders were grooming them because they had to look good to circuit overseer, and then circuit overseer says this congregation's doing good. So it was all on this. What would you call it? Praise. It's all praise that kind of ruined them, right?
Right.
Yes, exactly. And
the other thing though too is, Dan's just told me this story so many times where, during the day when the guys would go out with the sisters, they're getting in and out of the van, and they've got their nylons and their perfume and their dresses, and you can see, their legs as they're getting in and out of the car, and they look good, right? Like, duh, men are men, right? But again, they told Dan, like, hey, they all have the same parts, just pick one, his uncle said to him. Hey, it was for setting over here.
Yeah, he was way up. He had Beth Light daughters and everything, and I was looking at maybe getting to know a couple sisters, and he says, oh, just marry one of them. They all have the same movable parts. Can you believe that? And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? But that's grotesque.
And screw the love, right? He didn't say find a sister and fall in love and get married. Dan, you need to get married because for whatever reason. But no, it was not like that. It was like Dan said, it was for convenience. So you can't control your vessel. Can't control your vessel because of the bloom of youth. Then you marry. It's better to marry, but it's not for the sake of love. In that organization, it's never, ever, ever about love. It's about necessity, about taking care of your needs. It's selfish. It's self-centered, and it's never about love.
And I knew lots of brothers that got in trouble just going out in door to door and having wonderful, wonderful times with sisters who praised each other. Me and so-and-so went to the door, and you were wonderful. Well, you were magnificent yourself, and you did this, and we got to study, and we need to go back to I saw so many brothers. I had so many that ran off. I knew one guy that was in love with his wife, and he got, going door to door with a young sister, and she was really cute, really outgoing, and he was gone. I mean, you just got to be careful when it comes to the opposite sex, because in a religion where it's total suppression of anything like that, it's so easily to get hooked in. Like you said, you get in a van load of sisters. It's a tough thing. You've got to fight for those desires that are in your youth. You're 20, 25, right?
Yeah, I'm 26. So I realized very quickly that not only was the situation that I saw in my teenage years repeating itself, but that nothing was being done about it. A lot of these sisters, like every time we would get an article on forgiveness and treating each other right, it would often be them that would be raising their hands to comment, we should always forgive our brothers and sisters. We should be forgiving. We should try to make peace. But I can't tell you how many times I have been in situations with sisters where they'll be yelling at me. In one particular instance, I confronted this young sister who kept acting like there was something between her and my husband. And he acted like that too, but I'll get into that a little later on. Like, she kept acting like there was something between her and him. And, I took her aside in the Kingdom Hall, and I tried to be really calm about it. Like, I took her to the back room, and I was like, hey, whenever we're in service, please, can we try not to talk about these topics? And I was trying to be really discreet, really calm, really collected about it. And she started yelling at me at the top of her lungs like she wanted to fight me inside the Kingdom Hall. And she was like, let me get one thing perfectly clear. I do not like your husband. And after she did that, she made sure to spread rumors about me in the congregation to make it look like I was this crazy and jealous and insecure wife. While at the same time, while she was doing all of this, she was still chasing him. So it didn't make any sense to me. It was really, really weird, her behavior. And as we drove home from the meeting that day, I explained to my ex-husband, I explained to him what happened. I was like, this is what happened. She yelled at me, when I told her about this and that. And guess what he did? He defended her.
Oh,
yeah.
My God.
He defended her.
I had the same exact situation in my life happen to me exactly. It's so crazy how it's just that crazy way it works, just, I don't know. I can't even believe it.
Yeah. It was very, very bad. Our marriage wasn't happy. He was not affectionate. He would always withhold affection, and then he'll tell me that I needed to earn his affection by doing certain things. If I was angry at him, if I was angry at him and I didn't speak basically below a whisper, he would turn off to what I'm saying. He wouldn't even listen. So me talking like at a regular tone of voice when I'm angry was too much for him. He'll be like, you're yelling. And I even have videos. I still have video recordings on my phone of certain arguments that we had, because he made me feel like I was crazy, like I was yelling when I wasn't yelling in those arguments. It would always be him. He needed a woman who would just bow her head down and be a slave to him. And I did an experiment where for 1 week, I acted like the kind of wife that he genuinely wanted. I barely spoke above a whisper, and I spoke very, very slowly. And every single time I would open up my mouth to speak, he would jump in. And that entire week, I didn't finish a single sentence with him. I cooked, I cleaned. Whenever he wanted, sex, he got what he wanted. Even though for the entire duration of our marriage, sex was painful for me because he was terrible, but he didn't care. It was all about his pleasure. And whenever we were done, he'll just tap my thigh and roll over and go to sleep like it was nothing. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy. And we came to a breaking point towards the end of 2019 when we were planning for our trip to Togo to visit, our country, because he was Togolese as well. And at that time, he started really acting like he hated me. Like he would come home and not stand the sight of me. It was bad. And I would ask myself, like, why does this man hate me so much? And another thing that made me realize that he was a narcissist, if we were within a group of friends and they were talking about something and I chimed in a little too much, the ride home will be very, very quiet, because he'll be like, oh, you were too outspoken today. You shouldn't have spoken up as loudly as you did. You should keep quiet. You shouldn't talk. You shouldn't say this. He always wanted a woman who would just stay quiet among a group of people, never draw any attention to herself. Every time someone paid me a compliment in front of him, it could be a sister, it could be a brother. It didn't matter who that person was. He would visibly get uncomfortable. That's what I'm saying. All of these are traits of narcissism, and I didn't even realize that I was dealing with a narcissist. And he was emotionally and mentally abusive. Like he would play mind games with me. He'll act like whenever I didn't do what he wanted, he'll act like someone said something terrible about me to him, and that he wouldn't tell me who it was or what they said until I behaved myself. He a few times when I would get mad at him for certain things, he locked me in our bathroom. Oh my God. Like he locked himself in the bathroom with me trying to fight my way, because I'm claustrophobic. I'm scared of small spaces.
Oh no, oh how cruel.
Or he'll lock me inside and be like, oh, you better calm yourself down. And I'm like, let me get out. Like, if I'm upset, it doesn't mean that I have to be in the same proximity as you. But yeah, he was crazy. He made me feel like there was something genuinely wrong with me, and that I needed to keep working harder and harder and harder to earn his approval, to earn his love, to earn his affection that he never gave to me. At some point in our marriage, things got so bad, and I told him, you don't even buy me something so simple as flowers. And he was like, flowers don't fit into my budget. That's what he told me. Flowers did not fit into his budget. This is a man who made more than enough money to provide for the both of us. He had a decent enough job for a witness. And he said that flowers were not in his budget. I remember during lockdown portion of the pandemic, I was telling him, we're a young couple. When all of this is over, let's, try to enjoy our lives. Let's go on vacations. Let's have fun. And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, this life is not meant to be enjoyed.
Wow.
He was crazy. There was something seriously wrong with him.
A
few times when we went to Africa in early 2020, that was the end of January to early February 2020. We only spent 2 weeks in Togo. I met his family. I met his mother, his father, his brother for the first time. because I had met them virtually before, but I didn't know them. And I saw how his father treated his mother. His father was very, very abusive to his mother. Like, and it wasn't physical abuse, because if he was beating her up, I mean, even if he did that in Togo, no one would really do anything about it, because it's they don't care about women in Togo. But, his family were witnesses that his father was extremely emotional abusive to his mother. I began to understand the reason why he was abusive to me like the way he was. It's because his father was like that. And his family warmed up to me. I'm naturally a warm person. I love people. I saw them as like an extension of myself. I'm like, this is another family for me to get to know. This is extra people for me to love. I loved my mother-in-law. Even my father-in-law, even though he was the way he was, I genuinely did try to connect with him. I loved him. My brother-in-law, I saw him like another brother. But he hated the fact that his family. Yes, of course.
Hi, my name is David, okay?
Yes.
You touched on so many things, and I'm not a witness. My wife is a witness, and her whole family is Jehovah's Witnesses. There's 12 kids in the family, and she's one of the 12. And what you've been saying about them becoming colder and colder in the last 2 years, that is so much like what my wife has become.
Wow.
And I was like, why are you doing these things? Why are you feeling this way? Because the witnesses have isolated them and manipulated them so much. And every time I can go and if I go to Walmart and I pass the flower aisle, I'll go get her flowers. I'll go pick her up something. It's certain things that she can't do, and it drives me crazy.
Wow.
And I hear what you're saying. I mean, we've been married for 36 years now.
Wow.
But I don't let it. I do not let their religion or their business get involved in my life and my two boys' lives. And I flat out told them that if you you're not allowed to talk to my two sons, and you're not allowed to talk to anybody else in my household. If you want to talk to my wife, that's fine. Do it outside in the front yard. But I would never let my two boys go to the Kingdom Hall. And that's
good for
just
you
the way it was.
Keeping an eye on your family, taking care of your family. That's good.
I think
No.
Please take care of your family.
I look at it this way. If Christ wanted us to have a business for religion, he would have given us one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I look at it. And if
Exactly.
you can't believe if you could not believe what is in the King James Version of the Bible, that's fine. But when you rewrite a Bible and you tell me that this is the way the Kingdom Hall does it, and this is the way the organization does it, and you say organization over and over and over, but you always go back to the back of their pamphlet and you look at the last 2 pages, and it'll say Bible and Tract Society Incorporated, INC. It is a company. When I brought that out to our county found out that they were a company and they were going from door to door. They wrote a law in 1984 and they put the hammer down on these people. But I'm just telling you,
publishing company.
they're a company. They were not a business. When I got involved in 1986 with my wife, I didn't know what Jehovah's Witnesses were all about. I'll put it to you that way because her father tried to sit down and tell me their God was better than Jesus. I looked at the man and I said, "You're out of your mind." I grew up in a military house, and I'll speak my mind. And if you don't like it, tough. My father was really rough on me, and he made me tough. But I'm just telling you, I understand what your pain is. I feel it. I see it. I even see what they're doing right now.
Thank you for that validation. Thank you. What's your name?
Thank you so much.
My name is David, and I'm from Virginia. And the other thing is, since they got this pandemic going, okay, in the Putin war and everything, they're using all their literature since 1965 to 1976, I should say. And they're using that literature in that 10-year frame against people right now.
Wow.
And they're using that fear factor.
That's a great point, Dave. Hey, Dave,
because
those are some awesome points. I just want to let Laura finish up if we could. But man, those are some great points you're bringing out. But we're running. We've got probably 30 minutes left, so I just want to see if she could, continue on. Would that be okay?
And
yeah. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you for that chiming in, though. No, that's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, David, I tell you what, I just want to say my heart goes out to you because I want you to know that you deserve that love that you're missing and that you're being denied. It's not right. It's wrong. And you deserve to be given gifts and love and affection. And I'm really sorry that you're going through that. I really am. And I'm glad you brought it up.
No. You don't have to say you're sorry. Christ takes you through certain trials in your life, even if it takes all your life to do it. You are a witness for Christ that way.
That's right.
So
you got
I'll
a
let
good
you
head
go.
on your shoulders, Dave. Thank you. You got a great head on your shoulders, and thanks for chiming in. That was some great points. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead there, Laura. How we doing, Rick? We okay?
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, that's not. If I were to talk about my marriage, we would be here all night. Quite honestly, it was bad. But so what ended up happening was after we came back to the United States early that February, within a week things were shut down. It was like we left America, live and flourishing and everything. And we came back to a ghost town. Everything was shut down. We were the last flight out of Togo before the shutdown.
Oh, wow.
In the nick of time, I came back home. My work turned remote. They sent me a computer. I wasn't going into the office anymore. I brought back gifts for the sisters despite my grievances with the sisters, I brought back gifts from Togo for every single one of them. And I couldn't even hand it out because, we were shut down. And, I was stuck at home with him. And it got even worse because I didn't have a choice. Where was I supposed to go to work? But he would act like I was invading his personal and private space. And that's another thing he would say. I'll ask him certain questions, and he'll be like, "That's my private life." That was my husband. And he'll be like, "That's my private life."
Did you feel like this was still the truth despite him? Did you feel like, this was...
At the time, I was thinking, I was telling, I wasn't even really necessarily talking to Jehovah at that point. I was talking to God. I was like, God, this can't be right. There's something about this that's not right. I don't know what is about this organization. I feel like I'm in the truth. I'm trying to do right by you, but I don't know why at every turn I keep getting hit with nothing but anger and sadness and despair. I don't know what's going on. So what ended up happening was in the middle of 2020, I called an elder in the congregation. He was next to the Colby. I think he got appointed Colby because our Colby stepped down. And I told him about what we were going through. And he came in and spoke to us. He didn't give him any advice. He didn't tell him anything. He didn't tell him anything was wrong with his behavior. And I wish at the time I didn't even know, like the more time goes by, the further I am out of the Jehovah's Witnesses now, the more I realize how under the control of my ex-husband I was. He really had me under his control where I felt like I was going crazy. I was the problem. There was something wrong with me and I deserved everything that he did to me. It was all my fault. It was all my fault. So yeah, the elders didn't help either. The Kobe didn't help either. He would always give him a slap on the wrist and read me a bunch of verses, give me all the counsel. We even went as far as
what is a Kobe, Laura? I keep hearing you say that. What is that?
Coordinator of the body of elders. That's the new word for the head of the elders. I think presiding overseer, Kobe, same thing.
Okay, presiding overseer. Okay, got ya.
Presiding overseer and Kobe are the same thing. Coordinator of the body of elders.
Oh.
C-O-B-Y?
Yes.
C-O-B,
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, why is he keeps getting a slap on the wrist? This man is literally surrounded by idiots. Nobody wants to tell him that anything's wrong with his behavior. We even went as far as going to my spiritual mother, who was like a spiritual mother to him. This is an older sister in the congregation. She's elderly. She was a pioneer sister. And I went to her. I explained to her what I was going through. And when it was just me and her one-on-one, she gave me the validation that I needed. She believed that I was going through something. But when it came turn, when we both sat in front of her, she refused to tell him anything. And then later on, when we were one-on-one, I told her, what happened? You said that he's like a son to you. Why didn't you give him the counsel that he needed? And she said, oh, I could never counsel an elder.
Oh, wow.
She said she could never counsel an elder, even though this was a man who was young enough to be her grandson.
Oh, God. Oh, my.
Her grandson. Nobody told him anything about his terrible behavior. And it was so bad. And one day, I think this was mid to late April. At that time, his father had already passed away. His father passed away in 2020. And, that was another thing. When his father passed away, oh my God, he took out his father's death on me. It was hard in the house. He would tell me things like, oh, you wanted him to die anyways. You never liked him, because I would speak out on the unjust things that his father would do. Not to say I hated my father-in-law. I'm like, what he did is not right. I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite, but if that person did something wrong, what he did was not right. But yeah, he flipped his father's death on me, and he was like, oh, you wanted him to die anyways. See, now he's dead. Are you happy? Are you happy? Oh, you should be happy now. Yeah, he's dead. You never even liked him anyways. Why are you sad? What's your problem? But yeah, that's the thing he would say to me. And then he realized that I was getting, I was really, really seriously contemplating leaving him. At that time, I was already fully awake because I exhausted all my resources. I even went as far as going to a Bethelite elder for help. And up until the day that I disassociated, that Bethelite elder never got back to me about our marital issues. They didn't care what I was going through. They did not care what I was going through.
Were they afraid of him, Laura? What you saying?
No, they weren't afraid of him. But men hold a certain position and power in the religion. They don't care about what women go through. They wanted him to remain an elder. That's why. They didn't want to do anything about the unjust things that he was doing to me. They didn't care.
It goes back to work. It takes work to work on relationships and to hear people and to sit down. And it's easier just to shove a woman under a table and say, just ignore her, because they another thing is they don't want to report it to the society, to the elders, to the whatever, because then there's a record of it, and then there's a bad mark, and then they have to explain that to the circuit overseer, and then there's a record that's, they have in the records, as we know about,
Yeah, right.
So it's easier just to ignore it. So they do ignore a lot of stuff under the pretense of let's don't bring any reproach on Jehovah's name. That's a one-liner there that covers their ass for pedophilia and everything else they hide in there.
Well, it's sad is it gives women all this resentment because they can't express themselves. They can't say anything. It's packed in. It causes mental illness in the end because you've got to face this stuff. You've got to speak to it. And the fact that they are not allowed to, it doesn't work. Like you said, you went to the elderly woman. She will not deal with it in any way, shape, or form. No one will. It's really a tragedy, and I'm surprised that you figured out that it was wrong because most women just fall apart and they lose their hair and they get on depression medication and they get depressed and they die young. And I got severely depressed. That's how I know now that marriage was bad from the jump, because literally ever since we got married in May 2017, I had been sickly until I left him in May 2021. Wow.
We got married and literally I left 2 weeks before our wedding anniversary. But I'm going to just backtrack a little bit. During 2020, after exhausting my resources and literally feeling like I'm losing my mind, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do what they tell us not to do. I started looking at apostate videos. This was during the regional convention of 2020, where we were supposed to watch everything on video. We got into some massive argument, and he didn't want to watch the convention with me on the couch. So I went to our bedroom. He watched the convention in our living room. I watched it in our bedroom, and I wasn't really watching the convention. I was watching a rebuttal of the convention from one of the XJWs on YouTube. So basically, I would watch it and I would feel guilty and I would stop and go back to the convention, and I'm like, wait, but that made sense. Let me go back to that. And so I was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And by the end of 2020, by December 2020, I was fully awake.
Yeah.
I was fully awake by December 2020. And then January 2021, I called my father because I hadn't spoken to him in over a decade.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, did you leave or get this fellowship? Did you leave or get this fellowship?
She left.
I disassociated. I disassociated. But the thing is, I called my father in January of 2021, and I told him, Dad, I don't want to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore. And he could not sleep that night. And ever since then, he had literally been an emotional support for me until I left the Jehovah's Witnesses in August of 2021. And that part of my story always brings tears to my eyes, because I'm like, I have my father back. I always feel like a part of me was missing. I now know the truth of our history, everything that happened in my childhood. I'm putting all the pieces together like a puzzle, and everything fits somehow. Everything made sense. Every terrible thing that I went through, I'm like, now I know why there was something wrong with this religion. This religion was like a weed in my life the entire time. I was dealing with individuals that weren't functioning properly because they never got help for their narcissism. A lot of these people are narcissists.
Yeah.
And I didn't
why?
realize it.
That's the thing. There's nothing to name it. They steer us away from any type of social work or any type of, psychology. Anything like that is forbidden. So we're only left with the dumb ideology of the governing body, who's very narrow-minded and authoritarianism. And so we don't know anything. So I'm so glad that you're labeling it. Angela, comes out here and talks about boundaries and, codependency.
Awakening from unconscious resentment.
And we're like, what the hell's a boundary? Well, that's when you tell an elder to get out of your way for you to knock him out of your way, That's where you say, you don't do that to me, right? You don't speak to me that way. You don't look at me that way. That's what setting of boundaries, but we don't have the tools.
We are not given them. Yeah. And we should have learned them in school and church and home, but we were not given those tools.
Yeah.
So we can't function normally.
And the thing is, one thing that I noticed is a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, when they leave the organization, they don't know what to believe, and a lot of them become atheists. And I'm not saying this, to down any atheists out there, but I was literally an atheist for about a month after I left. And this was because, like, something about my story is always weird to me, because after my ex's father died, after he passed on, I just kept feeling something, some energy, like something is pushing me away from this man. It's pushing me out of this religion, and I didn't know what it was. And I kept holding on because I'm like, you know what? Even if I disassociate, I can still stay married to him. We can still try to make the marriage work. And my father was guiding me the entire way. He was like, "No, my child, you should not do that. If he doesn't love you, why are you still there? He's sucking the life out of you. You're not even healthy."
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, what ended up happening, and I honestly feel like this was, I'm, like I said, I'm still religious. I honestly feel like it was God that pushed me out. Like, quite honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I believe
the way the events unfolded, it was so crazy. So what ended up happening was, I told my mom that I was having doubts in the organization. I told her of some of the research that I did. I told her about the Australian Royal Commission, which she knew about, but she never told me about. So I told her, "Mom, back in 2016, this happened in Australia, and da-da-da-da-da." And she was like, yes, that happened. And I started asking her, "Wait, that's not right." And she was like, "Yeah, that happened, but I'm not going to talk about it with you." And then next thing you know, she picks up the phone, she calls my ex-husband, and she tells him everything. She tells him everything, which makes life even harder for me in the house. It made life even harder for me in the house. And then I made the mistake of turning to my aunt back home, the same lady who raised me. And I told her, "Auntie, I'm going through a really hard time. I'm really suffering. I don't even know if I believe in this anymore." I'm thinking she's going to offer words of consolation, because if someone is weak in faith, that's what they do, right? They're supposed to help you, strengthen your faith. Instead, she told me, "Oh, if you dare to relieve him, I'm going to find a replacement for you." And not only that, not only am I going to find a replacement for you, but you're stupid, you think too much of yourself. You're like, it was just a long list of insult after insult after insult after insult, after telling me that she would find a replacement for me, for my ex-husband. And while we were in mid-conversation, and I was responding, and I was telling her, that I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, I was just trying to explain myself, she blocked me. And I haven't heard from her ever since. That was over a year ago now. And
it just sounds so dumb, Bill. I mean, when you're talking, I'm hearing the words Jehovah hates, and I'm thinking of Stephen Lett. Jehovah hates divorcing. Oh, so what am I supposed to do? Let him beat the hell out of me, disrespect to me, abuse me, treat me like I'm shit? I mean, Jehovah. I mean, I don't get it. Like, this thing's rampant abuse. Oh.
Even after.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that even after all of that happened, I was still holding on. And the last straw was when I remember my ex and I, we were arguing, and he was treating me like I was stupid. And in the nick of time, he started calling out my dad's first name. Because, like I said, my mom, she spread his name far and wide, to the point where even my ex-husband, my dad was already so far removed from me by the time I got married. I don't know how he knew my father's first name. And he was like, yeah, your father. And he was saying, yeah, Vincent, because, Vincent's my dad's first name. He's like, yeah, Vincent, you're just like him. You're this, you're that. And he was insulting my father, his own father-in-law, who he had never met. And in the nick of time, my phone started ringing. And who was it on the other line?
Your father. Oh, my God.
And I said to him, wow, this is like God's will. You're insulting him, and he's calling. Do you want me to pick up the phone? Do you want to talk to him? And he told me, yeah, go ahead and pick up. And I picked up because I genuinely thought he wanted me to pick up the phone. And I picked up the phone and I said, Dad, and at that time, we were in the middle of an argument. So I didn't even say my husband. I was like, the guy. I was like, Dad, the guy wants to talk to you. And my father was like, no. I don't want to talk to him. Just call me back later. And my dad hung up. And after my dad hung up, he was fuming. So he called his family in Africa, put them on speaker on the line, and proceeded to berate me and proceeded to unhash every single minute detail of our,
Oh.
at that time, our 4 years of marriage. He unhashed everything that evening. Just every disgusting detail about our marriage, he unhashed it to his family back home and painted me like the devil. He didn't say anything that he did. He didn't say anything that he did. And then every time he'll say something bad about me, they'll turn around and they'll be like, why did you do that, Laura? You shouldn't do that. He's your husband. And then he told them that I was talking to my father, that I was in communication with my father. And my brother-in-law had the audacity to ask, oh, did you ask your husband permission before talking to your father again?
Oh my God. But he told you to answer it.
Yeah, did you ask him for permission? So I have to ask my husband permission to talk to my own father. My own father, who brought me into this world. I have to ask for permission. It was disgusting. And it just reminded me of, further back in our marriage whenever he would come to me for, intimacy purposes, he'll be like, oh, every time I come to you, you should always say yes. You should never say no to me. Yeah, same concept. I was property.
Yep.
I wasn't a human being with feelings. I wasn't allowed to feel. I was just a robot, a machine who was meant to serve for his pleasure, to cook for him, to clean for him, to be his slave, to be behind him, to never speak up, to never say a word. That was what I was supposed to be.
That's right. And you know something? There's a saying, and it's a spiritual saying that really don't really apply here, but as above, so below. As above, meaning the governing body. Don't they treat the body like this? You're slaves. You're supposed to go door to door. You micromanage your ass. How many hours did you get? Your comments weren't your own words. Are you having a home Bible study? And we haven't seen you on Saturday. But you're treated like the same. I hate to use the word bitch, but you're treated like the same thing by the governing body. The governing body treats its followers. You don't ask where the money goes. You don't ask what happened to Brooklyn, New York. You don't ask what we're doing to this. You're treated the same way. So as above, so below. You're treated like a bitch. And that's what's happening. That's what happened to you with your husband. Go ahead.
I want to say something real quick. I'm just saying, you guys, you know what? It says that you'll know the true believers you'll know them by their love and by their fruit. All these things the Bible talks about. And so if there's no fruit, that's not God. And yet we're somehow tricked to believe that's not how it is, that it's supposed to be that you obey the governing body, that you shun women, that you treat them like crap, that you disrespect them, on and on and on. And the Bible says too, really the truth is that you are the real believer. If according to the Bible, your husband was the one without the love and without, he didn't love you, and he proved it over and over again. And so, it says in the Bible that if the man is not pleased to dwell with his wife because he's the unbeliever, right? So then, then basically you're free to go. So in my way of looking at it, God decided he wasn't pleased to dwell with you and you were free to go. And so he was getting you out of there. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
you can take it or leave it.
Precisely. I absolutely agree with that.
What kind of organization throws death threats on you? If you drift away, you're not going to come back. If you leave, if you get disfellowshipped and Armageddon comes, you're going to be destroyed. If you talk about Jehovah when you leave, you're going to suffer the second death. What kind of God threatens to kill you if you don't know his name? Only those who call in the name of Jehovah. This organization is mind control. And you know something too? They've never allowed us to connect with our heart. The heart is treacherous and desperate. Who can know it? How the hell can you fall in love? You're told if you feel a little warm feeling towards your damn dog, you're having incest. That's the sexual, whatever the heck word they use. You can't even love a dog. And the dog's on you purring, and your cat's purring, your dog's tail's wagging, and you're told, get rid of that feeling. We've never connected to our hearts. We were connected with mind control, watchtowers, satanic, ritual, mediums, mind control.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Oh my goodness. It was crazy. So what ended up happening was after that happened,
Hold on one second, Lori. Let me check with Rick just to make sure how much time we got. The clock on the YouTube says 1:29, but I don't want to go. They got another show starting right after us, so we don't want to. Let's see where we're at.
Well, Dan, this is Rick at the control panel here, and why don't we go about another 10 minutes, 12 minutes? We got a lot of people that might want to speak up. So maybe we can get some people to speak up and talk to Laura. I mean, that might be good too, you know?
Sounds good to us, Rick.
Well, let's let Laura finish up for a minute, okay?
Go ahead, Laura, then we'll gas them and come on in.
Yeah, so I mean, that's basically what happened. That was the last straw for me because I didn't think that I had anything left. I was only staying with him for his family because my family had already turned their backs on me and sided with him. So I thought, you know, I'm staying for his family. But after he did that, I didn't have anything left, and I started looking for rooms, and I moved out. The girls that I moved in with are medical students, and they really helped me to get back on my feet emotionally, in the sense that they made me understand the gravity of the situation that I was in. When I moved in, I was a frail looking thing that barely had any life to her. Within weeks, my cheeks plumped up again, my hair stopped falling out, my digestive issues went away. Like literally my menstruation regulated itself. That's how bad things were when I left him. Yeah. But my body started getting that. I started getting healthy again. And I submitted my disassociation in August. The funny thing is, after I moved out, the remainder of my belongings, he packed them up in a corner so that I wouldn't walk around the house like it was still mine. And after he packed up my things, 2 days later I returned, and he didn't want me there. So he told me, oh, can you just hurry it up already? Hurry up and pack your things already. Besides, do you need me to help you? Because I have things to do. And then a month later, a month later, he called me saying that he wanted me back. And my father said, no, that man does not want you back. Maybe the people in this congregation are berating him for you having moved out, and they're trying to get you back together. And he was absolutely right. I almost went back to him. But a few months later, I realized that he only wanted me back so that he can make me suffer for leaving him in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I submitted.
Well, glad you're out, Laura.
Congratulations.
Let's see if anybody else got anything they want to say to Laura. You heard her story. If anybody wants to chime in, feel like say a few words to her, go right ahead.
It sure is cool how quick God got her back to normal, isn't it? Oh my gosh, Lord, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead and hit *6. If you want to say hello to Laura, hit *6. Let's let her know what you think. You've been listening in here all night tonight, so let's let Laura know how you feel.
Did you enjoy the show, Rick?
Yeah, in fact, I found it very fascinating, Dan. Laura's quite the woman. She's very, very articulate. She's coming from strength. She's not a weak woman. I can see that. She certainly is explaining things in a way that is very sensible. This woman has been beat up badly by the Watchtower, her husband, but this is not the first time I've heard a case like this. But Laura's hanging in there, and I really applaud her. I think she's doing an excellent job. Good girl, Laura.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I applaud God too, because he does amazing things so fast. And he did the same for me too. And I'm just like, I'm in awe of it. I really am. I mean, we think we're all screwed up. We're depressed. Our hair's falling out. Whatever's going on with us, right? And look how fast things turn around. That's how fast our life can turn around. I'm just in awe of it.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Well, go ahead and hit *6. Come on, say hello to Laura. Why don't you do it? Come on now. We got a lot of people on the radio telephone line. So why don't you come on, say hello to Laura. Give her a little pat on the back. This woman's gone through a lot. She needs a little encouragement. So go ahead. Come on. Say hello to Laura. Hit *6. Go ahead. Boy, I'll tell you, folks, tonight, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but people are just sitting back.
It's okay. We know how it is, Rick. Sometimes people are shy.
Yeah, one thing I could say, Rick, is that she's kind of going through a really, really tough time right now, because all her friends and everybody that she ever knew and her way of life is gone. And she literally has started over. So she's having to build an infrastructure with, different people. And there's an extreme large amount of loneliness that she's going through, very alone in her process of rebuilding at the moment. And I think that's very typical, and it's very, very painful. So, I think it would be great if we had a better way that we could connect these people, all these different people lately who need someone to talk to in the middle of the night. Anyway, just throwing it out there, but we need to do something.
Hi, Laura. My name's Debbie, And I just wanted to say congratulations for getting out of a rotten marriage and being able to stand on your own 2 feet. It's a really difficult thing to do, especially these days. And it is amazing how much better your health can be when you're not under the stress of a horrible husband like you had. I mean, I totally dislike him just from you talking about him. But I actually dislike a lot of people you talked about. But I just wanted to tell you, I'm proud of you for being able to do what you've done, because it takes a lot of courage. Because, and like you said, when you first leave, you don't know what to do because that's all you know. And you don't know what to believe. It's very confusing. And sometimes it takes years, to get over it, to get over being, I was going to say being in the truth, but I spent like 45 years of my life, I keep wanting to say in the truth, but as a Jehovah's Witness, and it's amazing. I mean, I have a lot of health problems, but my health is much improved since I got away from them. And this probably sounds mean, but my husband passed away in July of 2019. And he never was a witness. He was extremely sweet. I was the difficult one to get along with. I know nobody can probably believe that, but I didn't know what to believe. I was confused, and I was angry. I was mad at God, for everything that was going on in my life. But since his death, and I love my son dearly, but since my husband died and my son disappeared, I've actually gotten an amazingly much, much better physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So you just keep going, girl, and you hang in there. And hey, I'm up all night, pretty much every night. And if you ever want my phone number, just let me know, because I will talk to you till your fall off,
And me and Dan have her phone number. Thank you. Yeah, me and Dan have her phone number as well, Laura, and she's great to talk to. So she's been through it. I'll tell you what.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Hi, Laura.
You're welcome. You just hang in there.
Okay. Another caller. Hi there.
Yeah. Hi, Laura. This is Gail. Your story was so inspiring, so encouraging. I'm listening to you speak and express yourself. I believe you said you were 26.
Yes.
Yeah. Really? Wow. Yeah, I'm so happy for you. You have the rest of, so many years ahead of you. The way you bounce back so quickly is so inspiring to me. Like you're not doubting what you did or anything. And when you spoke about reconnecting with your father, I almost lost it. That was my favorite part of this story. I'm so glad you're reconnected with him. He's back in your life, and you can enjoy your father again, and you know the truth. I'm so happy for you. We're all cheering for you. What a great story.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow, that was quite the program. My goodness, Laura, you made a big impression on the audience here tonight. They loved you.
Got one more guest there. There's one more guy there. Do you want him on there?
Yeah, go ahead. You got another comment. Go ahead. Come on, right now.
There was one more. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yep, we sure can.
Chris. Yeah, Dan, it's me, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
You're right there. The dynamic tonight was great because I just have to tell you, and I just have to ask again, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And the dynamic she gave about how young sisters that aren't only dealing with issues in their home are put in a situation where the only thing they have to do is choose the only brother they can choose, instead of saying, okay, why don't I work on myself, and when I meet the right person, I'll meet them. But the witnesses don't have that dynamic at all. You have to meet the first person that can meet you and want to put a ring on it. And hearing the whole story and how she came out of it and what happened, it's just a shame that the witnesses not only use emotional and psychological and sexual dynamics in the whole human experience. And Dan, I think in not only this show, but talking to you personally on the phone, we've talked about a lot of stuff. And in one way it's deep, in one way it's not, but I'm just so glad your guest got out of it. And it's just a shame that deep.
Hang in there with us. We're going to go back. The phone cut off, but stay with us. We'll be right back. Stay with us on the Six Screens Video Suite. We'll be right back. Also, if you're on YouTube, stay with us. We'll be right back with you. What happens if the phone cuts off every...
Welcome into the live Six Screens conference
every
call.
6 hours.
We thank you for joining in. To speak up and talk, press *6 on your telephone. When you are done talking, press *6 to mute yourself. Remember, when you are unmuted, your phone is a microphone and picks up on all noises in the background. We hope you enjoy the programs tonight. You will now be placed into the conference.
If you are the press, please enter your... Thank you. There are 26 participants in the conference.
Yes. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that
Thank
comment.
you so much.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, Six Screens and Dan and everyone, I've had my issues in the past, but this is a great dynamic because what a shame to use emotions, psychology, and sex against people to make them do things to get out of a worse situation, then they get into something worse. But please let the show go on. I'm really enjoying this.
Thank you. Well,
We hear you, Chris.
we got to turn it over now. We got another show starting, but I thank you, Chris. Great thoughts. Thank you, Laura. And I want to thank everybody listening in. And I want to tell everybody this, just like you're hearing Laura bounce back, you can bounce back, you can come back quick. Like she said, she was already praying to God. She was already connecting. And I'm going to tell you something, your life is waiting for you. Your life and all your gifts and everything God gave to you is waiting for you, and God is waiting for you. And that's it, Rick. Thank you so much, everybody.
Love you guys.
Good night.
you.
Love you.
Have a good night.
Well, a great program tonight. Thank you guys very much. My goodness, it was wonderful. Sitting here on the edge of my seat. It's all good. Now we've got After the Storm coming up here next, right here on the Six Screens Telenetwork. Now, listen, if you're on YouTube, we're going to end it right now. After the Storm is not on YouTube. It will be next time they come on in 2 weeks. But if you want to listen to After the Storm, go to sixscreensofthewatchtower.com, scroll down till you see the telephone number to listen into, or scroll down till you see link here for Video Suite. Sixscreensofthewatchtower.com. Do that, and you'll be all set. We're going to end this program now, but coming up in about an hour and a half, an hour or so, we have Apostle Babe Linda James. Her program will be back on YouTube, Healing After the Watchtower. So she'll be back on YouTube in about an hour and 15 minutes. Hang in here with us. We're going to end this YouTube broadcast right now.